Each time an African leader sets out to do what pleases them and not abide by the Western rule, they enter the Western blacklist. Today, we'll talk about Ibrahim Traoré, interim leader of Burkina Faso since 2022. Ibrahim Traoré is a Burkinabè military officer who has been the interim leader of Burkina Faso since the September 30, 2022 coup d'état that ousted interim president Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba. At age 36, Ibrahim Traoré is currently the youngest serving president. Ibrahim Traoré was part of the group of army officers that supported the January 2022 coup d'état that brought the Patriotic Movement for Safeguard and Restoration military junta to power. From March 2022, he served as the head of an artillery regiment in Kaya. Many supporters of the January coup became dissatisfied with the performance of Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba, the junta's leader, regarding his inability to contain the jihadist insurgency. Traoré later claimed that he and other officers had tried to get Damiba to refocus on the rebellion, but eventually opted to overthrow him as his ambitions were diverting away from what they had set out to do. The dissatisfaction about the situation was highest among younger officers who fought against the rebels at the frontlines. In addition, there were delays in pay for the Cobra troops. When the plotters launched their coup on 30 September, Traoré still held the rank of captain. The operation was carried out with the support of the Cobra unit. In the direct aftermath of the coup, Ibrahim Traoré declared himself the new head of the Patriotic Movement for Safeguard and Restoration military junta. On 6 October, he also assumed the position of interim president as head of state, supreme head of the armed forces. He initially promised to hold democratic elections in July 2024. Ibrahim Traoré has always been one who believed in Thomas Sankaro's vision for a better Burkina Faso and Africa at large. Since his rise to power, Traoré has not folded to the will of the West. In February 2023, Ibrahim Traoré's government expelled the French forces assisting in fighting the local insurgency from Burkina Faso. He subsequently declared that, "We want to look at other horizons because we want win-win partnerships," supporting the diversification of Burkina Faso's international partnerships. Shortly after, Ibrahim Traoré's government expressed support for a federation with Mali and both invited Guinea. All three countries are under military leadership, and if it were to become a union, it would be the largest country ruled by military junta. To replace French military support, Traoré forged closer ties with Turkey and Russia. In April, he declared a general mobilization of the population to support the military, as rebel forces continued to increase the rate of their attacks. Traoré publicly promised to reconquer all rebel-held areas, and that there would be no negotiations until the insurgency had been greatly weakened. In the following month, Ibrahim Traoré questioned the planned restoration of democracy for 2024, stating that elections could not be held unless the insurgents were pushed back and the security situation had been improved. On 29 July 2023, following the 2023 Russia-Africa Summit, Ibrahim Traoré said that the people of his country support Russia and communicated that a decision had been made to reopen the Russian embassy, which was closed in 1992. Ibrahim Traoré envisions making a better Burkina Faso irrespective of the West's response. He plans to boost Burkina Faso's economic growth by investing in agriculture, industry, infrastructure, and education, creating jobs, reducing poverty, and improving the living conditions of the Burkinabè population. He is also committed to resolutely combating terrorism and insecurity that have plagued certain regions of Burkina Faso. To achieve this, he promotes a comprehensive security approach involving enhanced regional cooperation and the development of intelligence capabilities. When it comes to education and healthcare, the captain understands that education and healthcare are pillars of human development. He plans to make substantial investments in these sectors to ensure equitable access to quality education and adequate healthcare services for all Burkinabès. For Ibrahim Traoré, national unity is essential. He seeks to bring together the different ethnicities, religious groups, and regions of Burkina Faso by fostering dialogue, mutual respect, and tolerance. Leaders of Burkina Faso's two coups in 2022 both cited insecurity and various forms of misgovernance as reasons for their military takeovers. After his rise in power, the country's military leader, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, agreed with the Economic Community of West Africa, ECOWAS, to coordinate a transitional framework for a return to democracy with presidential elections by July 2024. The updated 14 October 2022 transitional roadmap set out four main objectives for the new regime. Traoré's first commitment was to fight terrorism and restore the country's territorial integrity. The government reorganized the defense and security forces, acquired new military equipment, and recruited about 10,000 army and navy officials. He went ahead to hire about 90,000 volunteers for the defense of the homeland. Although this move received mixed responses from the army and the public due to concerns over their training, supervision, and long-term prospects, all of which could worsen insecurity. The government also created the Patriotic Support Fund to boost citizen engagement with security efforts. Another of Traoré's commitments was to deal with the country's humanitarian crisis. With nearly 2 million people internally displaced and over 36,000 refugees. Regarding the goal of rebuilding the state and improving governance, the junta passed important new legislation targeting clientelism and political patronage in the public service. Anti-corruption efforts led to the arrest of former Transport Minister Vincent Dabelgu and 4 others who received 11-year prison sentences for embezzlement and money laundering. The last of Traoré's pledges was to supervise the holding of elections to restore constitutional and democratic rule come July 2024. With barely 3 months until the end of the transition, there's a lack of urgency on the case. In a state TV interview last September, Traoré said his priority was addressing insecurity and safeguarding the nation, not elections. Referring to the elections, he told reporters that it was not a priority, and security was what mattered the most in a country plagued by jihadist violence. This raised concerns among political parties that polls would be delayed, especially since the technical preparations haven't started. The poor security situation could also offer a pretext to postpone the elections indefinitely. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, since his rise to power, has not stopped making moves to better his nation and free them from the pressure of the West. He went ahead to suspend all broadcasts by France 24 media in the country, after it aired an interview with the head of Al-Qaeda in North Africa. By opening its antennas to the head of Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, France 24 not only acts as a communications agency for these terrorists, but also offers legitimacy to terrorist actions and hate speech, the junta's spokesman said, referring to the interview on March with AQIM head Abu Ubaidah Yusuf al-Anabi. Therefore, the government has decided to suspend the diffusion of France's 24 programs on national territory, he added. In early December, the junta in the West African nation suspended Radio France Internationale (RFI), which belongs to the same media group as France 24, accusing the radio station of emitting a message of intimidation attributed to a terrorist chief. For years, coups have been used by the Western world to install puppet leaders, ones who could bend to their rules. On 26 September 2023, dissidents of the Burkina Faso armed forces attempted to overthrow the ruling military junta, led by Ibrahim Traoré, who came to power barely a year earlier. On the night of 26 September, pro-Traoré social media accounts posted messages encouraging supporters of the junta, known as Guardians of the Transition, to go out and protest in support of Ibrahim Traoré after rumors of a possible coup surfaced. On the morning of 27 September, smaller protests broke out in downtown Ouagadougou against Ibrahim Traoré's rule. The protests were quickly dissipated. That night, the junta stated that a coup attempt by high-ranking security officers was foiled by intelligence gathered by the Burkinabè intelligence agency. The junta stated that 4 officers were arrested in connection with the coup attempt and that 2 more were on the run. Despite failing in the coup attempt, they did not give up. Months later, in January 2024, the government announced it had thwarted another planned coup set for 14 January. In what was officially described as the umpteenth attempt at destabilization, junta forces made several arrests of military and civilian personnel. Captain Ibrahim Traoré is not one to give up a few coup attempts against him. He went ahead to shock the world more. On 28 January 2022, Burkina Faso was suspended from ECOWAS following the military coup. On 28 January 2024, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger announced via a joint statement that they were withdrawing from ECOWAS without delay. The 3 nations, all of which are currently ruled by military juntas, accused ECOWAS of implementing inhumane sanctions to reverse the coups in each nation, and also not assisting them against jihadists and deviating from the ideals of its founding fathers and Pan-Africanism. The 3 countries, now collectively known as the Alliance of Sahel States, AS, together in this alliance give them political cover and support in the face of growing pressure from ECOWAS and other regional institutions to comply with their transition deadlines. Apparently, their attempt to restore a puppet government using sanctions did not work for the countries. Captain Traoré also clarified that Burkina Faso has no plans to rejoin ECOWAS, saying their move was an irreversible one. As if all these moves from Ibrahim Traoré were not enough, in November 2023, Burkina Faso's Council of Ministers approved the construction of the country's very first gold refinery. This marked a significant development in Burkina Faso's gold sector, aiming to capitalize on the nation's growing gold mining industry. Ibrahim Traoré seeks to gain more control over its gold resources by refining gold domestically rather than exporting unrefined materials. This would adequately increase government revenue and economic benefits from the gold sector. The refinery is set to create 100 new jobs and 5,000 new indirect jobs, with the refinery producing roughly 400 kilograms of gold daily. Ibrahim Traoré mentioned that a lot of gold leaves Burkina fraudulently, and this moreover helped to fuel terrorism. The mining sector accounts for 14.3% of state revenue, according to data from the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, EITI. But gold production slid from 66.8 tons in 2021 to 57.6 tons in 2022, a 13.7% drop. Authorities traditionally struggle to control the artisanal sector which, the Mines Ministry says, produces an additional 10 tons of gold a year. Burkina Faso's construction of its gold refinery might push other African countries to follow his strategy. If this happens, the European gold market will significantly fall since it depends solely on Africa for its gold, despite its huge gold reserves. The West is not pleased with this idea. In January 2024, Burkina Faso marked a significant development in its mining sector with the inauguration of a revolutionary mine tailings treatment plant built with domestically developed technology. This plant aims to improve resource recovery and environmental practices. The focus is on efficiently extracting metals from various mine tailings, including fine coal, slag, ash, and acid concentrates. This process promises to minimize waste and maximize the value extracted from Burkina Faso's mining resources, while also reducing environmental pollution associated with conventional disposal methods. The inauguration signifies Burkina Faso's commitment to an endogenous approach to its mining sector, emphasizing domestic expertise and technology for responsible resource management. The success of this plant has the potential to boost Burkina Faso's mining industry through increased profitability, promote environmental sustainability through reduced waste, and advance domestic technological innovation within the mining sector. In February 2024, Traoré ordered the suspension of the issuance of export permits for small-scale private gold production. This move was reportedly aimed at tackling illicit trade and cleaning up the artisanal gold sector. Illicit trade involves smuggling gold out of the country, avoiding taxes and bypassing regulations. This suspension aims to crack down on such activities and ensure that exported gold is properly documented and contributes to government revenue. The government hopes this suspension will establish a more formal and accountable system for exporting small-scale produced gold. Ibrahim Traoré is not backing down on fighting for his country's freedom and building a great nation in the process. Will France keep finding ways to make him stop, or will they give up after this many tries?